Let me ask you something. Do you think that the secret to getting higher marks is just studying for more hours? If you do, you might be preparing for your exams the wrong way. Okay, so let's dive into this with a quick story about two best friends, Rohan and Aman. They were in the same class, had the same syllabus, and pretty much did the exact same thing all year, until exam time hit.
So when Rohan saw that mountain of a syllabus, he went into what you'd call beast mode. We're talking 12 hours a day, phone off, no friends, everything cut off. The problem was, even though his books were wide open, his mind was just stuck. Now Aman, he got serious too, but his approach was totally different. He aimed for about 7 to 8 hours of real, focused study. But he made sure to take breaks. He even went out to play badminton in the evenings, just to keep his mind fresh and avoid that burnout.
I mean, think about it. Rohan was working way harder for longer with way more intensity. He even told Aman to stop distracting him. So after all of that extra effort, who do you think actually scored higher on the exam?
Yep, it was Aman. Everyone was totally shocked. The guy who took breaks, the one who studied less, actually outscored Rohan. So when Rohan asked him, how is that even possible? Aman just smiled and said something that really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today.
See, Aman's answer points to the right way to study, and it's not about some complex theory. It all boils down to 5 specific practical tips that completely changed his results. So let's break them down, one by one.
First up, and this might be the most important one, the mental game. So many students don't fail because they haven't studied, they fail because their own mind starts working against them when the pressure is really on.
In this slide right here, it perfectly shows you those 2 different mental battlegrounds. On the left, you've got Rohan's mind. It's completely trapped, He's either terrified about the future, thinking, what if I fail? Or he's full of regret about the past, thinking, I should have started earlier. You literally cannot focus when you're stuck there. But then look at Aman's approach. He did something so crucial. He just accepted that the past was gone and the final result wasn't in his control. The only thing he could control was this very moment.
And that's the big takeaway here. You've got to shift your focus from the outcome to the daily process. Instead of worrying about the final grade, just ask yourself, what do I need to study and revise today? The moment you do that, your mind automatically starts to calm down. And a calm mind, well, that's a mind that can learn with incredible focus.
All right, so your mind is calm. What's the next hurdle? Figuring out what to actually study. A huge mistake students like Rohan make is treating the syllabus like it's a novel you have to read from chapter 1 to the very last page. But an exam isn't a test of how much you can read. It's a test of what you can actually recall and explain.
This is where Aman applied a simple but really powerful idea, the 80-20 rule. He figured out that exams are basically a probability game. A huge chunk of the questions, usually around 80%, consistently come from a pretty small part of the syllabus, maybe just 20 to 30% of it. This chart really visualizes the whole strategy. A smart student doesn't try to master everything equally. No way. Instead, you pour your energy into that small, high-value slice, that 20% that's going to give you most of the results. It's not about ignoring the rest, but it completely changes what your priorities are. So how do you actually do this? Well, Aman looked at past exam papers to find these high-probability topics. Then, he made a simple priority list. First, master the easy but important topics to get some quick wins. Second, dedicate focused time to the tough topics that have a high weightage. And third, for everything else, just cover it on a surface level. This whole approach just reduces the pressure and gives you a clear direction.
Okay, so you've figured out what's important, but then you run into another classic trap, confusion. You might think that using more sources, more books, more videos is going to make you smarter, but a lot of the time it just leads to paralysis. This was Rohan's exact problem. He'd read his school notes, then he'd think his coaching material was more detailed. Then he'd go on YouTube to find the best explanation. But every teacher had a slightly different way of explaining it, different examples. What's the result? When it was time to actually write an answer, his mind was just filled with one question. What am I even supposed to write?
Ackerman made a very clear decision. One topic, one source. That was it. Whether it was his school notes or a YouTube teacher he trusted, he just stuck to it. And this quote from Bruce Lee, it just applies perfectly to studying. Mastery comes from going deep with one source, not just scratching the surface of many. So pick one and revise it until you know it inside and out.
Now we're at what some people call the real secret to aim and success. Because you can have the right mindset, the right topics, and the right source, but all of that is totally useless if the information doesn't actually stick in your brain. Most students study until they go, I get it. But exam marks aren't for getting it. They're for retention. It's all about how well you can pull that information out of your brain when you're under pressure. Amachaman had a really simple rule for himself. If I can't explain a concept in simple words without looking at the book, then I don't really know it yet.
So he added one extra step to his studying. After he read a concept, he'd close the book, put everything away, and then explain it out loud, just like he was teaching it to a kid. This simple trick immediately showed him two things: which concepts were crystal clear in his head, and which ones he'd only just passively read. The places where he got stuck, those were his true weak points, and that's what he knew he had to revisit.
And finally, even if you do all of those other things perfectly, your hard work can be totally wasted if you don't control one last thing: your environment during exam time.
The most dangerous things during exams are, a lot of the time, other people. It's your friends outside speculating about the paper, or everyone discussing answers after it's over, or even family members interrupting your study time. This is where the panic really starts to set in. And discussing a paper that's already done? It's pointless. You can't change it, and the stress can absolutely ruin your preparation for the next exam.
Eamon didn't fight this. He just communicated. He set a firm rule for himself that he would not discuss papers, before or after. And he actually sat down with his family, explained his study hours, and asked for their support in creating a quiet, distraction-free zone. In return, he'd help out during his breaks. It's really just about setting clear boundaries.
So those 5 tips: mastering your mindset, prioritization, sticking to one source, active retention, and controlling your environment, that's what separated Aman's smart work from Rohan's hard work. It's a clear choice between two very different paths.
So the final question really is for you. As you get ready for your exams, think about your own methods. Are you just grinding away with brute force like Rohan? Or are you ready to adopt a focused, strategic, and, in the end, a much more effective approach, like Aman?